Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we are back with another recording of Gone Home Director's Commentary, mode enabled. Let's continue. So we're going through the Director's Commentary, we've got all the lights on, it's a little less spooky that way. We're gonna try and avoid some stuff. One thing is we picked up a voice journal out of order from the way we picked it up originally, and it seems like they will just go in whatever order you pick up and put them in that order. So I suspect in my original playthrough I listened to some journal entries that were dated before other journal entries. And if I had gone and specifically played everything in order, it might have helped a little bit. But the one we just listened to happened on September 13th, 1994. This whole, that's like, and that journal references Sam meeting Lonnie. So their whole affair, less than a year, maybe a year and some change long. It's hardly been a super long thing. And that is an interesting question. Is this the story of Sam actually finding true love that will last forever with Lonnie? Or is this the story of Sam coming to realization that she's a lesbian and just enjoying her relationship with Lonnie and continuing it for as much as she can? The real question is, if you were going to make a Gone Home 2, realistically, since Lonnie was only there for a year, I would think if you set it 5-10 years in the future, which would be about 2000, they probably still wouldn't be together. 10 years in the future would be 2015. That would be realistic to believe, because almost nobody stays with their first love, the first relationship they have, and a big percentage of the people who do stay with their first love is because they are from an older or more conservative style of environment where you just marry the first person you know, or you marry your neighbor because your next neighbor is 200 acres to the north of them, which for a couple generations ago was very much the case. You knew who you were going to marry. It was going to be your neighbor, because one of your neighbors, because there was only 10 people in the village.
When you're when you're putting like lamps and stuff around a house, one thing that you have to deal with is plugging them in. And something that always annoys me about level design in games is when there's some lamp or piece of electronics that would have to be plugged in because it doesn't run on batteries, but it doesn't have a cable because video games. And so since a big part of the point of Gone Home is the specificity of the house and the believability of all the details,
because of that, Steve himself
I spent some late nights with my meager Maya skills modeling custom cables for each of the things that's plugged in, so that the cables actually run from the TV or the lamp or whatever to an outlet in the wall.
It is a really good detail. I think that I'm proud of you for getting that in there, Steve. That's important. Yeah.
It is pretty bad 3D modeling skills. Maya is a 3D modeling program. In comparison, when you look at what looks like just a rectangle compared to this lamp, which was probably made by the real artist or bought from a Unity asset, so made by a professional artist of some sort. That is rather meager looking, but I didn't notice that when I first played it until he pointed it out. But I did certainly notice the fact that they were plugged in, and I think that is a good thing for game creators to continue with and keep on doing.
So these are all the VHS tapes, or most of them, in the house. And these in the TV room are from they only belong to Dad and Sam, because Mom has some VHS tapes, but they're up in the bedroom. And you can tell Dad's because he writes in a big, heavy, all caps style handwriting, and Sam does not. So, contrary to popular opinion, the X-Files tapes are not Dad's; they're in fact Sam's.
But stuff like JFK
Yes.
has an obvious dad interest, and some of the other stuff that we put in there was very much like, what is a dad movie?
Yeah.
You know, what is when we were growing up, for instance, like, what is a movie that our dad or a neighbor's dad would have? So stuff like the Andromeda Strain or Moonraker, it's just sort of like, yeah, dads
love that shit.
Yeah, dads that were born in the 50s were super into that kind of stuff. And then some of it was, you know, stuff that we liked or remembered from when we were growing up. Like, you will know that Carla was involved in making this game because Beetlejuice and RoboCop are on a VHS tape. That's most of what you need to know about Carla.
That's true.
Right there.
Okay, so that's interesting. I never really thought about the meta the meta question you could do here, where if you just looked at the handwriting of who wrote everything, you would know who did or what belonged to whom.
My name is Sarah Grayson, and I do the voice of Sam Greenbrier in Gone Home. Currently based out of Portland, Oregon, so right around where the Fullbright Company is from, which is part of, I guess, how this all came to be. I started doing voiceover work probably about 4 or 5 years ago. It's been a bit of an on and off journey because I also have had regular 9-to-5 jobs that whole time. So I always get excited when I see video game auditions come across, because it's always been something that I wanted to do, and really excites me because I'm a video game fan myself. So there was an audition that came across that at the time was entitled Dear Diary, and it had this wonderful description about being this sort of 16, 17-year-old girl. Not too much detail about her, just that she was new to her school, new to this place she was living, and her sister had moved away. So she was sort of writing out her thoughts as if she was talking to her sister. So most of the time, I'll stand up at the mic when doing auditions. But for this one, I thought, well, no one's actually going to read their diary standing up. Like, this is kind of you write your diary while lying down in your bed, or like sitting cross-legged on the floor, or whatever. So I ended up having to pull the mic down, sat on my couch, legs crossed, got nice and cozied up in like my pajamas, and started reading it.
Interesting thing. What's funny about all voice actors is they all have like a story as to how they got the job. They all did something weird, because not because doing something weird ensures you get the voice acting job, by no means is that true, but because every single voice actor has kind of this whole voodoo dance. Not really voodoo, but just this'll give me luck type stuff, where they think they'll win because they're all very desperate to get jobs, or most of them are, and need the jobs. So, not real. That's introductions, I suppose. Move on to the next room, I suppose. See what this is.
Most of the bookshelves in the house are filled with undifferentiated books. I mean, they're not undifferentiated, but they're low detail, because, God, it would be an entire dev cycle's worth of work to actually do plausible spines on every single book. That would kill us. And then to repeat a whole bunch of books would also be sort of terrible, and not be very plausible. So we had chiefly unlabeled books or books in which the labels have been rubbed off due to age, etc. And we had a few individual books that were more precisely and specifically named.
The way that we did the books in the game is we made like 3 or 4 of these clumps of books that have the generic spines on them. They're just sort of filler books. They're kind of like what would be in the bookshelves of like a lawyer's office in a cheap lawyer's TV commercial or
right,
something.
Where they buy them by the foot and whatever.
Yeah, and then we took 1 or 2 clumps and retextured them to all have specific readable spines on them, and then I just took those clumps and broke them up and scattered the individual books around in different bookshelves in the house, so that hopefully I think every bookshelf has at least one unique book in it. That might not be true of everything in the library since there's so many bookshelves there, but I guess I should say every or almost every bookcase had at least one unique book in it that never repeated, to kind of split the difference of, okay, they're not all generic, but also we can't afford to make them all unique, and we didn't want to have any repeat in an obvious way. So that was our strategy for trying to not do any of the things that we wanted to not do.
I think there's definitely a missed opportunity for them to have snuck in either a red herring. I could definitely see like people saying maybe the unique books tell some kind of code. Like this one has a number 8 in it, so maybe there's a combination code or something. And there could be an Easter egg in the game and they just haven't told you that if they're going to do unique books. But I think it only makes it more obvious, personally, that all the books are rubbed off and worn when you start putting a unique one in. Particularly in this story, you could have just said, had a line of a note somewhere saying, Dad hates to put books up, and then there would just be like boxes labeled books. Or Dad hasn't gotten around to putting his books up since he's an author. And then you could have just had the bookshelves empty, or you could have just had them all rubbed off, and we can suspend our disbelief. It kind of sucks that they did all these records, and I don't think there's the face of any record sleeve anywhere. Like, not a single animated record sleeve, just the spines, which is about the least interesting thing.
This is our old-timey record that we got from archive.org, Source of All Good Things. It's by Adrian Rollini when he was with, apparently, the Taproom Gang. The song is entitled Got a Need for You, in case you can't read it, but you should be able to read it. And the duck I found on the internet. Adrian Rollini I got into him when I was on Bioshock 2 and helping source the soundtrack for that. And I did a lot of listening to 40s big band stuff, and Adrian Rollini was one of the ones that I really liked, and so it was cool to be able to revisit that.
So they got that song off archive.org. YouTube Content ID'd that song. So somebody's claiming copyright on that. Not surprised though. Somebody's claiming copyright on something they don't own all the time on YouTube.
Sam's story / school assignment called The Menstrual Cycle, a novella, is kind of a fan favorite. We've found like a lot of people have enjoyed it a lot, and it's one of those weird things where it wasn't planned. Like it was, let's see, I had decided that I wanted Sam to have done like some homework, and I thought sex ed homework would be interesting because sex ed is a weird class in high school to be in, and so I Google searched for an actual sex ed assignment, and the assignment is a real sex ed assignment that is given out in like the Pacific Northwest, like Seattle. I think this is technically from the Seattle School District website that I got this from. So so I found this thing which I didn't come up with, that I was kind of presented with, and I think I had been reading some stuff about like cool female spies in World War II, or like saboteurs, you know, that had been part of like the French Resistance and stuff like that, and so that's why the history book is next to the sex ed assignment. The intended implication being Sam was doing history homework and sex ed homework, and the history unit was on World War II, and so kind of as a fuck you to all of the annoying assumptions implied by the sex ed assignment, she wrote this story about a woman in the war who was more interesting than her menstrual cycle, you know, like that is a person, but while fulfilling the requirements of the thing. And yeah, it ended up being this really kind of strange juxtaposition of concepts that ended up saying a lot about Sam, I think.
I really did enjoy that story. Go back to my original recording of playthrough of this and read it if you missed it. Let's see. See if there's anything in these drawers. Nope.
I feel like one of the best bits of advice was actually from the Fullbright team before going in to do the first recording. And it was a suggestion that I should watch some episodes of My So-Called Life, which was great because I'd watched them all when they were actually on. It was one of those favorite shows my sister and I would sit down and watch every week. And so going back and watching them was definitely not a hard chore to have to do. So I basically went through all of the episodes I could find online in a couple of days. So it was a bit of a sudden binge watch of My So-Called Life, but it was great because I think watching My So-Called Life was a nice reminder of what a more natural presentation of a teenager is. So it was really, I don't know that it would have gone as well had I not done that.
So, even though they went for a lot of consistency, they still fell into what is almost an unbreakable rule in video game creating. Any asset you have or you create has to be used twice. This huge bundle of coupons, which makes no sense whatsoever, why you would ever have this many coupons, ever, no sense whatsoever. It appears again in the game right here. It's almost like they are just joking with this. Why not do just one coupon? That would make sense. But doing a bundle makes no sense. The lipstick here gets reused. The tissue boxes, there are several tissue boxes in the game, get reused. I believe the dice, however, there's only one here, and then the other one right next to it. I don't think I find any more dice anywhere. Let's see. And if I read that, I think I'll just be if I read it, I think I'll just activate another voice diary, which I don't see a real reason to. So that would be all of that section, and then the next section is to come up here. At this point, if I'm recalling correctly, which I have no real excuse not to recall correctly, we're not informed of any of the secrets yet.
We never really discussed the idea of individually scoring each audio log ahead of time. I just got an email one day from Steve after they had done the first round of voice recording with Sarah Grayson, who did an amazing job as Sam. And he said he'd been thinking about the idea of giving each log a piece of music to ground it in the proper tone. So I just started doing these short 20 to 60 second pieces, and that ended up being the bulk of the work for the game. It was a very iterative process. I did them in the order they were recorded, and I would just keep sending revisions of each log to Steve, taking his feedback, modifying the piece, and sending it back. Especially at the beginning, the feedback was almost always pull it back more. I've never done music this subdued before. Even more so than most game music, it primarily exists to quietly suggest a mood and tone to the player. Sarah's voice is always the main audio content. The game soundtrack I worked on previous to this was Blendo Games' 30 Flights of Loving, which consists of some really huge, bombastic, brassy pieces. So switching gears to Gone Home and constantly hearing pull it back, less melody, was surprisingly challenging at first. But over time, I think Steve and I developed a pretty good rapport. For the most part, the diaries required fewer revisions each time. And it's always a good reminder in a collaborative endeavor that your contribution only exists to make the whole work better, not to be seen or heard unto itself.
I have to say that he pulled back too much, though. I cannot recall at all any music playing at all during any of the voice things. Which is kind of, I guess, the goal, but it might as well have been just silence, because I don't recall any of it. Maybe it set the mood. That's always there's always a possibility that you can set the mood, and with a background music so well that people don't even know music is playing. But let's see, I'm trying to read what this one is say. Oops, didn't mean to pick that up.
It's weird hanging out with girls. Daniel was around ever since I was
So
little.
if I click this,
We never really discussed the
I
idea
can
of
stop
individually scoring
the
each
voice
audio
on
log ahead of
stuff.
time.
Okay.
I just got an email one day from Steve after they had
So
done
we
the
don't need
first
to
round
listen
of
to
voice
him. Let's
recording with
click to
Sarah.
this one.
I had seen Bikini Kill and Bratmobile play their first show at the North Shore Surf Club in Olympia. That was Valentine's Day, 1991. And I was kind of blown away by the incredible rawness and the honesty that they wrote with, and the kind of flippancy that they had. I thought was really interesting. But you know, to have the opportunity to talk about all of these issues that are really important to young women, I thought was really special. And I thought that what they were doing was taking the kind of intense feminist ideas that had become popular in the 70s with, you know, SDSS, and now, I mean, those really, you know, incredible ideas and the ideology of feminism, but they were putting it into a language for today, you know, for the 90s, I guess. I mean, that was 20 years ago, but it was for young people, and it was to relate to topics about sexuality, about sex, about sexual abuse, about sexism and harassment, and all these things that are really important for young women coming of age and becoming sexual beings that are really taboo to talk about.
So, one thing I noticed here as we're listening to the commentary, I don't see a unique book on this bookshelf. I don't see one. I see some rubbed off spines that you can almost read. The Day Thoughts of an Empire, perhaps. But not seeing a really unique book that was put in here. Maybe a cut and paste job done wrong right there. But it doesn't look like anything special. And this bookshelf looks fine. I mean, I just walked right past this when I first played the game. I look at it for a second, I go, okay, those are books. Nothing in this game has educated me or trained me to try to pick up books or read them or look at them. So I just moved on, I believe. So we get to Sam's room. Finally, we can get maybe some explanations. Maybe we can't. Ask about the stereograms first.
So these are stereographic? Stereoscopic?
Stereogram?
Yeah, these are stereograms.
Yeah,
That's the...
stereogrammatic.
Yeah. Stereograms, popularized by the Magic Eye brand of images from, yeah, the 80s and 90s. These really work. Like, if you cross your eyes and you can do a Magic Eye image, you can see what's in these. Spoilers. They are.
Well, as I recall, there's a cool shark.
And?
I don't remember what the other
Carla!
one. What?
It's a big heart.
Okay, it's hard for me to do those things.
And that's true for a lot of people. So the two instances of people not being able to see those images are they just can't do them, which a lot of people just can't do them, or they were born in the late 90s or after the 90s and played our game and didn't know what the hell these things were.
Yeah, they're like, what is this weird static shit? Yeah.
Well, I thought it was like we got some messages that were like, I thought it was just a weird drawing.
So good.
So, yes, as you get older, you can't hear really high-pitched sounds anymore, and you know what Magic Eyes are still.
It's the circle of life.
Okay. So now at least I know what they are. Not that I particularly care.
Around here, you will find some of Sam's Super Nintendo cartridges that she left behind. Obviously, for legal reasons, we couldn't put real games in, and so we conscripted a few of our friends in the industry who are really talented artists to make cool label art for fake Nintendo games that we came up with.
It's so true. The first one was Super Spitfire, and that was by Rachel Morris, who is a cool artist. What is it? The NYU?
The NYU Game Center. She's done a bunch of like posters and other art for them.
And then the next one was Adventures the Cat Returns, which is it's sort of a
it's a mascot platformer. It's a Bubsy-esque Tood having cat.
Oh yeah, but it's a regular cat. It's not a bobcat.
Yeah, it's a regular cat that rides a motorcycle towards an explosion.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lee Petty is the art director at Double Fine and worked on Brutal Legend, and I think he led up Stacking, and
Which is awesome.
he was nice enough to spend some of his free time making the label for Adventures the Cat Returns.
Yeah, we ran into him at GDC, and he offered to help us out, and we were all like, cool.
We were like, oh, you didn't think we'd take you up on that offer, did you? Draw us a cat.
Yeah, he regretted the error of his ways. And then the third one is Journey of Crystal, which is sort of a JRPG beast, and that was done by Gen Z.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's the art director at Supergiant. She did pretty all of the art in Bastion, and is working on Transistor. I know we had some people say that they could tell that it was her art because it has such a signature look,
It's pretty distinctive
to how she does things. So it was really cool and really exciting to have these really talented people from other studios that are inspirations to us contribute their unique art to the game.
So, even with all the lights on, though, there seems to be some trouble. You actually have to kind of position yourself in the right place. If you're looking downward, you apparently cast a shadow on itself. Or maybe I was just in a really bad place right there. I don't know. Definitely some weirdness just that I'm not used to in video games. As far as when you pick something up, usually it's designed to be seen. So most video games, quite right, would never allow this to happen. It would just be magically lit up when you zoom in. And we got some of an explanation there that Sam did apparently take the Super Nintendo and the Laserdisc player, and the VHS player. But then she left like the skull, and she left some other stuff. She may have taken cash. It would have been hard to tell. But then she also, uh, so now knowing Sam, who knows what really is in this box? I doubt it actually is just the game. It could be anything, and I won't speculate any further, but I doubt, knowing Sam, that she would just have mystery date in her closet for no reason.
One of the assets that I really liked creating in the game was board games. So there's 3 in total of them throughout the house. Ideally there'd be more, but we had to focus on the getting the balls built and things like that. But I really like them. They're just a simple extruded cube. There's something about environment design that's really fun. This really goofy aspect of it, where you have to create fake brand names. You have to create fake toys and fake storefronts. Maybe my favorite is in the game Costume Quest, when you're going to the shopping mall. There's a store called Why Not Flip Flops, which always makes me really happy. But this one is a parody of Dream Phone, which is a awful game that came out in the early 90s, where you sit around a table with your girlfriends and you pick up this plastic pink phone and call these sexy boys and you see which one likes you. It doesn't really suit Sam's personality exactly. I figure maybe it was given to her by a well-intentioned relative who doesn't quite have her personality down. And maybe she played it once on a lark and then put it in the closet, and that's where it stays.
And then
Mom and Dad are much more actively religious. There's a Bible in the foyer, and there's a Bible in Dad's bedside table.
Well, or arguably they want to appear actively religious. But yes.
Yeah, I think that, my intent was that they aren't super religious, but they probably still go to church.
And they also they would feel bad if they put their Bibles away. They'd be like, oh, we need those to be out for us to look at, to consult in case we need them, or something.
But it's definitely, I don't know, it comes from my own experience of my parents went to church and were more religious and stuff, and as, I don't know, around when I was like 10 or 12 or something, I was just sort of like, I remember having a conscious realization of just, none of this makes any sense. like I was like, this is all about a guy who was dead and then came back from the dead. That doesn't happen. Magic isn't real.
Wow.
And then there was a process of like just being like, okay, well, I'm just not going to go to church. I also remember having a conscious realization that the only reason I wanted to go to church was because after the service they gave you free donuts.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine.
And so I don't know. It's probably just partially me projecting and trying to show that Sam is re-examining her own values as she gets older and grows out of childhood and doesn't necessarily share the same beliefs that her parents do.
I never tried really hard to, like, I don't know, actually, yeah, I don't know, it was normal church behavior. Like, I would go and like help out with my younger siblings, and like my parents always went to church and whatever, and I'd go along, and there was like a couple of people that I knew there and everything, but it took me until I was about, I think I was like 13 or 14, and I spent a significant amount of time really trying to like to be like, alright, I'm gonna do this church thing, I'm gonna try really hard, and I would like get annoyed at people when they said, oh my god, and stuff, because I thought that was what you were supposed to do. And I think it was, I don't know, lasted like whatever, 6 or 8 months or something, and then it broke and I couldn't do it anymore. And I forget what I did something, I ruined something in the church through total not caring. I built I remember now, I built a house of cards out of a Bible trivia
like flashcard
set. Well, it was just like Trivial Pursuit, except it was Bible based. And I built like this big house of cards, and at one point I remember thinking, fuck it, and I glued the cards into place. So I had this big house of cards that was glued together, totally like ruining all the goddamn cards. And at that point, I stopped having to go to church so much.
Interesting. I guess you would have assumed that much. Hey, there's like a bracelet back here. It's a collar. Mitten. And it is an old address, too. The old address. Interesting. So there was a cat at some point. So while listening to that, I showed off my excellent skills of bouncing books through throwing them. And they say I don't have any talent. I kind of want to know that guy's story a little bit more. How at 10 years old was he able to convince his parents, who had already been taking him to church, that they weren't, he wasn't going to be able to go anymore? Usually that's not the story. Usually you have to pull a Sam, basically, like Sam, and run off before the parents will accept. I mean, and that's kind of a reaffirmation of the denial that Sam's parents have. Is I know a lot of parents who would have had their kid told them, I don't believe in any of this, I won't go to church. In fact, I still know a lot of parents that would say that. If their kid said that at 10, they'd say, well, too bad, you're still going. Of course, there was always, I know a lot of parents too that don't want to go themselves, and that might be the thing that helps them justify it to themselves. I kind of wish there was some conversation about this, or some conversation about that.
I was one of the hosts of the Idle Thumbs video game podcast for a year or two, and I, go on there, and every once in a while, those guys are my friends, and I didn't want to put Idle Thumbs references all over the game, but I did want to have Idle Thumbs references in the game, so we localized them entirely to this one piece of paper. So almost everything on here is an Idle Thumbs reference, and specifically to a weird exchange that we had about Will Wright's GDC talk in like 2008, where he didn't want everybody to show up and crowd the place, so he gave his speaker name as Phaedrus, and then did a talk about a bunch of crazy stuff, including the idea of rocket mail, which was going to be like done by it was pitched by the U.S. Postal Service in the 50s and stuff. So, and then the thing on the podcast was about how Phaedrus had a little brother, and so anyway, whatever. The brother, of course, it's a Phaedrus, and you can't hardly see the icon in the back because it's obscured, but there's this 50s rocket icon in the back that's like the logo of Phaedrus Motors, and then also it's the reference that Will Wright was making, and that is a secondary reference here because the motorcycle thing, is that in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, the book, the author is having kind of an ongoing exchange with this character from Greek history called Phaedrus, and motorcycles and blah blah blah. So it's a big knot of obnoxious references to lots of different stupid things.
I don't listen to the Idle Thumbs podcast. I probably should expand it out, see if I like it. I listen to a lot of podcasts, but haven't thought of that one or heard it. I probably have heard it in passing, just haven't given it full consideration. So that's Sam's room, except for here, which I think we have to find the combination. Let's do this last one for this recording.
Barf Burger is enjoyed by all. So the thing is, I drew the Barf Burger because I drew all of Lonnie's drawings. So I drew the two cats on the motorcycle and the Captain Allegra drawings and stuff like that. And that was really I think that it goes hand in hand with, I did Lonnie's handwriting in the game, and Carla did Sam's handwriting. And that was partly because the two of us were going to be working the most closely on this stuff, and so being able to just quickly like rewrite a note that we wanted to change and scan it and update the game and not have to like email somebody to say, oh, could you write that again or whatever, was really useful. And also we both just happen to have sloppy teenager handwriting that looks believably 17 years old. Also, I have a believably 17-year-old level of drawing skill, so that worked too. But it was fun because basically the notes were created in real life in essentially the same way they were in the fiction, where I would write my part of the note and then hand the piece of paper to Carla and she would write her part of the note, and we just constructed it that way.
That's pretty funny. So, one thing I'm noticing about Sam's room, I would be terrified to sleep in this room. And these hallways need more lighting. Gosh. It's like bulbs are out, but even if the bulbs were lit, I would be putting halogen lighting all up and down this, and long bulb lighting if I had to. And I'd hate to actually do that because that would destroy the look of the hallway, but it's just too dark. But to get back to my original point, I would be totally terrified to sleep in a room with two doors. I probably, somewhere subconsciously, am terrified to sleep in a room with one door. I'll let you in on a little secret in my life. I actually have on my door a combination lock that automatically locks after about 20 seconds of it being opened. So the only way anybody can even get in my room is through a combination lock, and I'm the only one that knows the combination. So I'm probably pretty paranoid to begin with. But I would be doubly paranoid if there was two different ways people could come in and stab me in my sleep. And I've started to think about this. If you go back and watch my first coverage of this game, you're probably getting a deep insight to the way I think on just how paranoid I probably am and terrified I am in this experience. But yeah, I'm probably showing a lot more than I realize just for this. But yeah, even architecturally, I'd say, you know what? This door is off to itself. Leave this door. Close this one off. Just don't have a doorway here. No reason to. At all. How else would I fix this architecturally? Well, you could close the other door off, but then you just have this hallway. Well, actually, what you could do is, before we wrap up, close off this section here. Have one door here. Have one door here that goes directly into a bathroom. And this bathroom can start here, go this direction, and be really, really big. Because there is a ton of empty space here. And we know that some of that's because there's a secret panel back here. But if that secret panel wasn't here, you could make a huge bathroom to about right here. You could add the rest of it all to this room because this room is pretty small. There's way better architectural things. And then yes, you could have one bathroom go a second door here that goes into the bathroom, and a second door off the hall that goes into the bathroom, or you could just not have that. It's kind of the same problem for me mentally if somebody could walk into a bathroom and then walk into your bedroom, but that is an old style of architecture where they would have two bedrooms that both connect to a bathroom in the middle, and sometimes that bathroom would have a third door towards a hallway. Sometimes the bathroom would just be shared by those two bedrooms. Well, that's enough of Architectural 101 with Rydo, and it's enough of Gone Home commentary for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment if you want to, and watch every second of my videos. All that helps me out. If you want to support me, you can click on my name, Rydo. On the right will be a blue button that says support this channel. Click it, make a donation. And if you want to friend or follow me on basically any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. I should say I did take actually a drafting architectural class, so I sorta, maybe just a little bit know what I'm talking about architecturally, but I only took it for 1 year, so I'm not an expert or anything. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.